because we're diving into the biggest sports what-ifs. And I want to know your biggest sports what-ifs. Maybe it's something that happened in your own little league game. Maybe it's something that happened in your adult rec league kickball league. Or maybe it's something that happened in Super Bowl 49 when the Seattle Seahawks didn't hand the ball off to Marshawn Lynch and they ended up losing the game and the entire dynasty of Seattle fell apart before we even were able to realize it. Richard Sherman sowed seeds of distrust among the defensive backroom. Earl Thomas ends up leaving in a couple of years. Cam Chancellor has a neck injury that he's never able to recover from. Sorry, didn't think I'd let myself go there. But the biggest sports what-ifs in the history of sports. My biggest what if is what if the Seahawks handed the ball to Marshawn in Super Bowl 49 and he got in for a touchdown. Now,
we got a what if between the two of us. What if we didn't throw the Crabtree? What if we actually used our tight end that had the better matchup, you know? Like, why would we go after the 6'4" corner on a short field in the fade when we've got a tight end being guarded by Cam Chancellor? It didn't matter who it was. It's Cam Chancellor in coverage. Why would we not attack him?
Do not disrespect 7'5" native Cam Chancellor.
I know. Hey, look, and if Cam
Virginia Tech, great
if somebody
Cam
plays
Chancellor.
this for Cam, I'm sorry, Cam, because I know you're a thumper, and I love you to death, but of all the people in that scenario, that's who I'm attacking.
Know that about Allen. Cam, if you're listening to this, just know I flew out to Seattle to buy your jersey. It was also to visit my family for Thanksgiving. But at the time, it was I think his second year. It was his second year when Seattle got their new jerseys. He did not have his jersey on the pro shop on NFLshop.com. You could only buy his jersey in person in Seattle. And so I was visiting family out in Seattle, and we made a specific trip to, at the time, CenturyLink Field and got a Cam Chancellor jersey. So Allen is making fun of your coverage abilities.
I'm not making fun of him. I'm just saying it's in the scouting report. I didn't write it.
Look, he's making fun of it. I, on the other hand.
Think about that team. Who would you attack in that sscenario? Sherman, I think you guys had, Browner?
Malcolm Smith was also in coverage because Malcolm Smith was the one who caught the interception.
We don't have a lot of time. We only have one read. So if we only have one read, I got to go after Cam. I'm sorry.
So that's a good what if. Yeah. That's a good what if. Here's a local what if that I've been thinking about recently. What if the Coastal/Colonial Athletic Association never signed the Flow Sports deal?
I think that's a Bob Black what if, man.
like does JMU probably leaves? Maybe not, but probably does. If the Sun Belt comes calling, JMU probably leaves. But does Delaware leave to Conference USA, or do they wait for another round of realignment and continue playing? Does Richmond leave to go to the Patriot League, who does have ESPN Plus as their provider? Does Villanova leave? Does William and Mary leave?
A part of me thinks that we would have always ended in the situation that we're in right now, but I think the Flow Sports thing expedited that.
I think that's it. Like, I think if it was 2025 and they are on ESPN Plus, I believe, and maybe Bob can probably provide a little bit more insight, but I believe 2025, if they had signed an ESPN Plus deal rather than Flow Sports, Richmond, William and Mary, and Villanova would all still be in the CAA.
I think that's logical,
because I think the Flow Sports deal hampered recruiting, because you talk to coaches and they're like, kids on ESPN Plus will just be flipping through and they'll see your team on ESPN and it helps recruiting. No one's flipping through the channels of Flow TV. No offense to Flow Sports. No offense. It's a fine product. It's very overcharged. It is very expensive.
What sport do you think has the most what ifs? I feel like it's basketball.
My list includes 2 football, 1 college, and 2 basketball. What's your basketball one?
Oh, my basketball go-to is always Derrick Rose.
Oh, that's a good. I thought it was going to be Len Bias.
No, I mean, it would have been if like, generationally speaking, I obviously was like a baby when that happened.
Yeah.
But my father has talked about Len a lot, and I'm pretty sure everybody in this area have know Len as well. That would be in my top 5.
Yeah. One of my what ifs is, what if Ray Allen misses the corner 3 against the Spurs?
Yes, we would be having. Matter of fact, your intro wouldn't contain the taking your talents to Miami.
Like, if you think about it, if he misses that, Tim Duncan is 6-0 in the finals. Does he?
No, he does not challenge Jordan's legacy.
No, but is he in the discussion more often than he is now?
No, because he's still the same bland loaf of bread.
How do you think LeBron would be viewed if he had lost that? I mean, how do you think that in the big three in Miami, the Heatles would have been viewed?
Yeah, it would have been a failure.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? One made shot by Ray Allen, who helped end LeBron's time in Cleveland, helped make him a success in Miami.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy.
Same thing that makes you laugh, makes you cry.
Yeah, Derrick Rose is a good one. What if Derrick Rose never blew out his knee?
Yeah, what if Bo Jackson never had his hip injury? Or actually, it's crazy for Bo. If Bo had played later in the 90s, I don't think that would have been the career ender that it was. Because if I recall, I think Garrison Hurst had a similar injury when he played with the Niners, or somebody had a similar injury.
That is a name I have not heard.
Yeah, but it's just because of the injury that I'm bringing it up. But I'm pretty sure he had a similar injury because I remember that coming up at the time, and he was able to at least extend his career a little bit. I just think if modernized medicine and sports medicine had been around, it would have saved him.
Isn't it wild that ACLs used to end careers?
Yeah, no, for real.
Yeah.
And now it's about 6-7 months, and they come back and you wouldn't even know.
Sometimes you come back stronger.
Yeah, depending on their position, you wouldn't even know.
Yeah.
In fact, when I had my ACL surgery, I remember my dad asking the doctor if they had to go in and repair it, and he was like, "No, we don't need to do that anymore." He was like, we just strengthen his quad and give him a brace, and he should be back to normal in no time. And he was right. I think the biggest hurdle for me was getting over it mentally because I felt unstable, but in actuality, I was perfectly fine. So
modern medicine.
Wow. Yeah.
Modern medicine. All right, here's a fun one. What if Drew Bledsoe never got hurt in 2001?
That's a good one.
Would we have ever seen Tom Brady? Like asking you, do you think Brady would have ever taken over Drew Bledsoe, who had just signed an extension to stay in New England and be the face of that franchise when that all happened?
I don't know if Brady would have beat him out. Maybe by the end of his contract, because people move on from quarterbacks a little bit quicker back then. But who knows? Maybe Brady would have demanded a trade or something.
Would Brady ever have become Brady? The reason Brady is Brady, in my opinion, for a large portion of why Brady is Brady and why Belichick is Belichick.
I got a better one for you.
Oh,
what if we had booth reviews? When
the Tuck rule.
When the Raiders played the Patriots.
Whoo! That isn't that play the reason they brought back reviews?
Yeah. I still say it was incomplete.
It was a fumble.
Yeah, I know.
It was a fumble. By the rule, it was an incomplete. But that rule is idiotic, and I think it has been changed since.
Yeah, it's because I think it's based on the angle now or something, or they try to figure it out.
They try to figure something, but he was pump faking it.
Yeah.
He did not mean to throw it, and he was trying to bring it back into his body. And
Poor Charles Woodson, man. Again, we're talking about greatness. Imagine if his team goes on and wins the Super Bowl with him having switched from corner to safety and all that good stuff throughout his career. I think he would be viewed a little differently too. Not that he's getting disrespected,
but he doesn't get the amount of respect that he deserves
because he doesn't have the championship hardware. I believe
he has one with the
Packers. He would have had two, which means a lot for a guy in the second.
And he would have had the. Did he win the Heisman?
Yeah. He was. Oh my God, he was amazing.
That's what I thought. That's a good one because the Raiders also then went off the rails after that, and. You could argue, those events, the Seahawks not handing the ball to Marshawn, the Raiders losing in that fashion, does throw a wrench in the overall team dynamic that can really impact the future of the team.
What if the NBA was legit and Patrick Ewing didn't go to the Knicks?
All right. All right, we're not shying this whole NBA draft lottery is rigged, although that one may have been.
That was the worst one.
That one may have been. That
was
one.
the worst one.
What if OKC was able to hold on to their OG big three, Harden, Durant, and Westbrook?
It wouldn't have worked.
You don't think it would have worked?
Nah, because
Harden wanted to be the number one guy?
No, because Harden developed into that though, right? He was a role player guy and he played his role, but he didn't have any defense, which is why he came off the bench. So if you think adding him to the starting lineup with all three, I think it would have stunted Harden's growth. Westbrook and Durant would have been fine regardless. He would always be where he is now. Westbrook probably would have ended up having to share time with Harden based on how they both play. because he's a defensive liability on the court at the 2, and he actually has more point guard tendencies with him as far as his game. So I think it would have.
You think they would have ended up splitting the?
Yeah, it would have. It would have affected those two more than it would have affected Durant. I think Durant would have always had his time and been the guy.
What if the Thunder, to keep it with OKC, what if they didn't blow their 3-1 lead in the Western Conference Finals?
Then that would have affected.
That would have affected Steph's legacy. It would have affected
Steph's
KD's legacy. He wouldn't have gone to Golden State as a free agent. He probably would have stayed in OKC.
It might have led to that Warriors dynasty getting split up. Yeah, because at that time, small ball was still a concept that a lot of people were kind of up and down on embracing.
And they're like, okay, it works in regular season, but it doesn't work in the postseason.
That was the narrative at that time. So
I bought into that narrative. When the Cavaliers brought in, who was it? They brought in a big guy, and I was like, this is going to change. There's no way the Warriors can play small ball against this lineup. And then I think that was the year they won in 5. And I was like, man.
You gotta come out from under that basket if you want to beat the Warriors.
Yeah, you do.
At least at that time.
But that's a fun one. What if OKC just wins one more game that season?
What if Eli goes to the Chargers and Phillip goes to the Giants?
I think Phillip has Eli's career, and I think Eli has Phillip's career.
That's interesting.
I think Phillip is a 2-time Super Bowl winning quarterback, and I think Eli Manning is good, not great.
Man, I don't know, man. Phillip Rivers just had some. He always had a knack for just being like, "What are you doing in that situation? You're so good."
His sidearm throws.
Yeah, we've got 1 minute left. We just need you to keep possession. Why are we turning it over? That was Phillip Rivers, the story of his life.
Well, Eli Manning's story was a career 500 quarterback who just so happened to get hot twice in the playoffs.
And I remember vividly those 2 playoff runs. He was just immaculate.
What if David Tyree does not make that catch?
Yeah, that's true. Oh God, then
what if then Tom Brady has another Super Bowl? What if he doesn't? What if Mario Manningham, in the next Super Bowl they played the Page? What if he doesn't make that spectacular toe tap catch, which was ruled an incompletion at first?
Yeah.
What if?
And to think how great his legacy is, Brady's legacy is with those 2 things happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, he would definitally be untouchable. As the GOAT.
We could go down all of Brady's Super Bowls? What if he doesn't have the 28-3 quarterback, the 28-3 comeback? What if Seattle doesn't throw an interception on that play? What if Adam Vinatieri misses one of those kicks? What if David Tyree? He does catch that, so that's a loss. But so many of it.
What if they didn't have film on the Rams before their Super Bowl? Dude, there's no way that's not true, man. You got players out here we've never run this formation, and they're calling out the play before the snap. Come on, man. I don't know. For me, a person who watches film and stuff, when that kind of thing is going on, I would have questions. How did you get that? Because every coach throws a wrinkle into whatever before they go into a game. There's always wrinkles,
and they knew the wrinkles. They had ironed out the wrinkles before they even saw the wrinkles.
And the greatest show on turf had many a wrinkle, and so for you to be able and the
you're talking about that Rams Super Bowl,
yes,
not the one that they won 13-3 or whatever it was.
I'm talking about the
OG one.
Yeah, the OG one.
They were underdogs of 12 points.
Yeah, and the fact that Marshall Faulk said that. The position of certain players in that particular play should have created a confusion because it was totally different from anything they'd ever done. And somehow Teddy Bruschi and them are like, it's going to him. And they're like, what? So I've always thought that was something that was valid just based on the account of players from the Rams. It didn't sound like they were griping. They were just saying these dudes must have been telepathic essentially. So
that's a good one. See, there's a lot of football ones, too.
Yeah, there's a lot of football ones. But I would always go to basketball because I feel like we have a whole lot more in basketball based on the pool being smaller in the draft and the expectations being greater.
What if Greg Oden doesn't suffer the most horrible leg injuries in the world?
Greg Oden. That's always a big what if.
What if? What if Brandon Roy doesn't? Didn't he have 2 ACL tears?
Brandon Roy had the I think it was the microfractures in his shins or something.
What if he didn't have that?
Well, what if he got the same treatment that Kobe had? Because Kobe had an issue. And
steroids, yeah.
Was it steroids? What was it?
I'm kidding.
Was it stem cell or something?
It was stem cell. Where he went to Germany to get it, right?
Some infusion or something. Which, I mean, you know, in today's age, if somebody told me that, I'd be like, yeah, you're cheating.
But because it's Kobe, we're like, what a guy.
I believed it back then. I will believe it now, right?
Well, it's like, remember the whole the conspiracy that Peyton Manning was taking HGH growth hormones, and that's why his forehead was so big? Poor guy.
He's Megamind or Brainiac or whoever that villain was in that last Captain America. He had the gamma going to his brain and made him smarter. That's who Peyton Manning was.
I've not seen that Captain America.
It's on Disney Plus. What if I just had it in my head?
Okay.
It was funny. It was a football one. I'll come back to it.
All right. What if I'm kind of out of what ifs now.
You could go on and on, but I would say that the majority of them will always make you think, just because historically speaking, we view the outcome so much greater when it's a win.
Yes.
And we rarely think about the what if that was a loss. Like the Rams Titans Super Bowl.
Like Steve McNair, what if that pass is 2 yards further down the field?
Yeah. What if
and
the
it's a
Music City
touchdown?
Miracle was a forward pass? You know,
which it was.
Yeah, like things like that. So I do think that, you know, in the current landscape of sports with instant replay, we're robbed of a lot of those situations now because we're air quote getting it right.
Yeah.
But
even so, like a close game or like things that do involve luck, it changes the way we look at it. Like we will always look at, to bring it here to present day, we'll always look at this New York Knicks run as like this crazy improbable run, good for New York to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. But if you zoom out and you're like, all right, well, if we played these playoffs again 5 more times, they are never making it to the Eastern Conference Finals. Because, like, they got so lucky. And I'm not saying, because luck, as I have said on this show before, is when preparation meets opportunity. They took the opportunity that the Celtics gave to them. But if you played 5 more games and you gave the Celtics a 20-plus point lead in all of them, they're not coming back in any of those 5. And they just so happened to get the perfect. I mean, the likelihood of that happening was less than 1%.
And just because you mentioned NBA, what if the first series was a best of 5 and not 7? There'd be a totally different trajectory for a lot of teams, I think.
Yeah, which let's take it back to a best of 5 series to open up it.
I kind of want that too, especially now that we have people like Aaron Gordon complaining that they play too much anyway, still, even in the playoffs. I'm like, it's hopeless. Just shorten the season, do 20 games, super sim the rest, and let them play best of 5.
Take over when your team's down 20 and you're like, I want a little adrenaline today.
Yeah. Now come in and figure it out, man. It's always complaining.
It is. My biggest what if out of all of those, though, as you could probably tell, what if the Seahawks handed the ball? Here's one more. It's a JMU related one. What if JMU didn't blow a 3-possession lead against Sam Houston State in the spring season, the COVID spring season of the FCS semifinals?
Well,
that's a really.
Since you mentioned COVID, what if we'd have gotten a 2020 March Madness
and Obi Toppin won it all?
Yeah, and that's for our Spiders because they had a great team.
Yeah, man, that COVID year really. That's a big what if because I think Obi Toppin and Dayton wins it, and then think of how that impacts the A10. Because of all of the shares of money that they would have gotten from Dayton. Like
Florida State had a top 5 team that year, too, I think.
Yeah, which would have helped the ACC, too, and the ACC is kind of struggling a little bit. Like, the CAA was living off of the VCU and George Mason runs for so long. They were living off of that up until, like, 2015, 2016, because of all of the shares that VCU and Mason had won in their respective Final Four runs when they were part of the CAA. Where if the A10 had a Dayton team and a Richmond team that were capable of winning multiple games, that would have changed the entire trajectory of the Atlantic 10 moving forward. They would have had so much more money. And for the ACC, could have had a Florida State team make a deep run. And any type of money right now would be good for the ACC.